Welcome, my dear friends. It's great to have you here. Scoot closer and let's begin today's story. Henry, please don't do this, Laura. My wife of 7 years was in the process of getting ready to go out on a date with another man. Henry, we've been over this. I'm going. He wants me and I want him. You may as well just accept it. Is he worth getting divorced over? Laura stopped putting her makeup on and turned toward me. You know you won't divorce me. You know that if you divorce me, all that will happen is that I'll get the house and the kids, and you'll have to pay me alimony and child support. I'll make it next to impossible for you to see the girls, and you'll just be paying me to have sex with other men anyway, but won't be getting any yourself. She went back to applying her makeup. I was stunned that this was the same woman I had dated for a year and been married to for the past 7. She had been nothing but loving, deferential, and supportive that entire time. Now it seems it was just an act. She was good. How would your mother feel about what you're doing? Henry, you're so naive and trusting. This was her idea. I've been raised with this goal in mind. The woman is supposed to have the power in a marriage. We're not as physically strong as men are, so we need to assert our dominance in other ways. Mom did the same thing to Dad when I was little. He eventually came to accept his place, and you will, too. Oh sure, it'll be hard, and your fragile male ego will probably put up a fight, but in the end you'll realize your best decision is to just go along. She finished up her makeup and checked her hair. Laura was definitely a beautiful woman. She was Armenian, with dark skin and long, straight black hair. She did have a bit of a nose on her that she says had given her some trouble when she was younger, but she had grown into it, and it now combined with her deep brown eyes to give her an exotic, sultry appearance. I had really felt I struck gold when we got married. As I watched her, she rather suddenly slid her hands up her skirt and pulled her thong off and tossed it on the floor. I decided that's just gonna get in the way. I want him to have access to my kitty all night long. Laura, if you do this, I won't be here when you get back. She again looked at me like I was an idiot. Honey, I'm sorry you're having a hard time with this. Despite what you might think, I really do love you. I chose to marry you because of how I felt about you, and because you're a better man and father than any other man could hope to be. Other men aren't anything to me but physical pleasure. I just need more than any one man can provide. But if you stop giving me such a hard time about this, I'll reward you when I get home. Did she think that was some kind of incentive? Her tone of voice certainly sounded serious. She continued. I should warn you before that happens, though. I know you've always liked me nice and furry down there, but you likes a girl smooth, so I shaved it all off. The hits just kept coming. You have got to be kidding me. So, some guy wants you to shave, and what he wants gets preference over what your own husband wants. And I'm supposed to be okay with this. Maybe not okay with it, but accepting of it, as you would be for anything you can't change. And if you get me off real good, I'll give you a really nice BJ. I won't be able to duck you anymore. He wants my kitty to be only for him. But I'll take care of you in other ways. Not that there was any chance this was going to be okay, but that was certainly the proverbial last straw. Why don't you just leave me and go be with him? She laughed like that was the most ridiculous suggestion in the world. I told you, Henry, that no one man can take care of all my sexual needs. Besides, he only makes about $25,000 a year. He's just a nobody at a warehouse. But he has a big stick, and the girls I know he's been with say he knows how to use it. No, we need your income to keep me in the lifestyle your kids and I deserve. So how do I look? I noticed she never once mentioned that she loved me as a reason. Like a horse. She laughed at that. You're just trying to be mean, but that's exactly what I was going for. She picked up her pocketbook and slid her ID, a spare lipstick, and her emergency money inside, and headed for the front door. Before leaving, she came over to me and tried to kiss me. I turned my head, so all she got was my cheek, and even at that I retched just a little bit. Henry, I know this will be hard at first. It's not what you were expecting your life to be, and it will take some getting used to. But you'll learn to appreciate the lack of responsibility this will mean for you. Eventually you'll be okay, I just know it. After all, you were some kind of soldier, so you're used to following orders, right? It'll all work out. Now I've gotta run. And with that she was gone. It was only about 7 p.m, so I had a little time to waste. Some kind of soldier. I didn't talk about my time in the army very much, it was true, and she never asked about it, so I guess that was all she could be expected to think. She would soon find out that being in the army was much more than being a soldier. At about 7:30 I did make that call to her mom. Though I knew more than either of them thought I did, I approached Margaret like I had been completely blindsided by this evening's events. I explained the conversation Laura and I had. I knew that Laura's dad was seriously whipped, but before this all started I hadn't realized the true extent of it. She explained it much like Laura did. Oh Henry, I know this will be tough to accept. You just have to understand that women are the natural choice to be in charge, and we have to use whatever means are at our disposal to gain that advantage. And the fact is that, despite what you might believe based on messages in popular culture, women need far more sex than men, and can do it longer and better. We have to have more than one lover, and we need other men to serve in particular roles. I was having a tough time not laughing hysterically as she outlined her philosophy. Is that so? I asked. Of course. Like my husband, Gary, your primary role is financial support and child rearing. Do it well, and you're rewarded accordingly with access to our bodies. Laura tells me that a kitty is for her lover only. Don't worry about that, it's only temporary. It has to be done at the beginning, to give you something to aspire to. Once you get more accepting of your role, you'll get more opportunity to please her in those ways. Actually, she'll need you too. Since you're her husband and societal norms dictate that you be the one she lives with, she'll need you to help her remain clear-headed, so she can properly run the family. Does this all make sense? You know, Margaret, you've done a wonderful job of explaining it. It does make perfect sense. I'm delighted that I could help clarify things for you. I know this seems harsh and such a big change, but it won't take long for you to get into a rhythm, and come to even enjoy the part you play. I'm sure you're right. Do please make sure the girls are in bed by 9 o'clock, though. Of course, Henry, I'm happy to respect your wishes in that regard. We women are not unreasonable. And feel free to call me if you have any more questions. Perhaps I can answer them a little more clearly than Laura can. Margaret's complicity in this thing would not go without consequences. She would not be physically harmed in any way, but I believe the means by which she would suffer would actually be more painful for her. You see, I was more than aware of what Laura was planning to do. Laura was actually the one that had been too trusting. She assumed I would just go along with things on a day-to-day basis, and that she had me fooled. But there were things in her behavior that suggested things were changing. And so I contacted several of my brothers in arms to help me out by simply doing what they did best. Alan was the smartest of us all. He had been involved with the intelligence units while we were overseas, and had learned most everything there was to know about surveillance and electronic security. He had tapped our phones and bugged Laura's car, purse, and cell phone. He had plenty of audio of her speaking with her mother, her friends, and her lover about what they were planning. I suspected some of her friends had plans to pull the same crap, depending on how Laura's attempt went. David had also worked within intelligence, but he was more of a peon than Alan was. David was one of the guys that had forged documents for various agents overseas. In civilian life he didn't do it anymore, but retained the knowledge to do so as it was needed. And it was needed. David was also one of the best computer hackers there is. One of my commanders overseas, Mark, was now an executive in a company that did quite a bit of business overseas, and this gave him access to the company's private jet. He could use it as he felt necessary and had little in terms of reporting requirements. And finally there was Jason, Carl, and Dennis, JCD, as we called them as a group. These guys were the grunts, but they were good at it. They were crack shots with their weapons and could move quietly with the best of them. All of the guys were on alert, and at 10 p.m. the plan went into action. My request that the kids be in bed by 9 o'clock was part of the plan. I had packed some suitcases for myself and the kids, mostly with things of personal and sentimental value. There were some clothes, sure, but their toys made up the bulk of their packed belongings. We could buy more clothes. I loaded them in my car and then began my last drive over to the in-laws. I pulled up in front of Margaret and Gary's house. It was dark except for the light in the living room, where Laura's folks were watching TV. I stepped out and found JCD in position watching the house. Jason briefed me. The kids went down at 9 o'clock and were likely asleep within 15 minutes or so. The subjects have been watching TV since 9:30. The husband has made a few trips into the kitchen for drinks and snacks, but that is the extent of their movement thus far. We are ready to enter when you are, just say the word. Do it. JCD approached the house. If I hadn't known they were there, even I wouldn't have been aware of them. They were using just sidearms, no automatics necessary for this particular operation. I simply stood and watched the living room and watched with interest as the guys entered the living room and quickly subdued Margaret and Gary. I sauntered slowly toward the house and entered through the front door. I could hear Margaret pleading. Please don't hurt us. You must have the wrong people. We haven't done anything. Our granddaughters are asleep in the next room. Please just let us go. We won't say a word to anyone. We'll just... It was at this moment that she saw me enter the room and stopped talking. You'll just what, Margaret? Don't keep us in suspense. Henry, what is going on here? You release us immediately or Laura will. Shut up, Margaret. I had never spoken to her that way and she was shocked. There is nothing, Laura, you can do about this. I suggest you just listen to what I'm about to tell you. Please save your questions until the end. As we spoke, JCD calmly and efficiently secured each of them to one of the dining room chairs. These guys were experts at this. Margaret and Gary would be stuck in those chairs until someone untied them, or they somehow managed to break the chairs into pieces. Margaret, Gary, I've decided that I won't accept the future that you and your daughter have tried to dictate to me. As tempting as it was to live my life in service to your daughter and cede all responsibility to her, I just don't think it will work for me. I'm certain my sarcasm was showing. I became aware of your little plan some time ago, and I made my own arrangements to deal with it. And since you are going along with it, and in fact encouraging it, well, that means that you will suffer some consequences as well. And what consequences would those be? Margaret snidely interrupted. Margaret, I asked you to save your questions until the end. I'm getting to all the information you need. But since you asked, I'll answer that question now. Your consequence is the one that, in my opinion, will hurt you the most. You will never see your grandchildren again. Henry, no, please, no, you can't do that. Please don't. I held up my hand to stop her rant. I can, and I will. But Laura is still young. Perhaps in time she will provide you with some replacements. But that's not my concern. She was suddenly aggressive, trying to gain the upper hand. We'll find you, Henry. We'll spare no expense to track you down. You know we have money. We'll find you and you'll be sorry. You're welcome to try, Margaret, though you're wrong about one thing. You do not, as you say, have money. What are you talking about? Well, as part of your consequences to never see your grandchildren again, there were some steps that were necessary to prevent you from taking the very action you're anticipating. Therefore, I've had to take the unfortunate step of having all of your bank accounts drained, except for just enough to keep you afloat for a month or two. This includes your investment accounts, your 401k, and even that little secret bank account you and Laura opened as an escape fund that you didn't think I knew about. How on earth could you do that? As you can see by the friends I have with me tonight, it's clear that the lot of you underestimated the resources available to me due to my army career. It's how I've gotten my hands on nearly every penny there is between you and us, including cash advances on all your credit cards. Before you can even think about going after me, you'll have to deal with the remarkably crushing debt load. Gary, I hope you weren't planning to retire anytime soon. I, on the other hand, will never have to work again. Gary hadn't spoken a word, and didn't now. He just glared at me, though I think part of him was hoping I'd offer to take him with me. But the good news is that you'll be in it together. Laura won't be able to afford the house, since she doesn't work, and with the mortgages I've taken out on it, even selling the darn thing won't amount to anything for you. Her credit cards have been cancelled, and yours have been nearly maxed out. You won't have enough money to pay attention. So she'll have to come live with you, and maybe between the three of you, you'll be able to make it work. We'll still find a way, you rat, just you wait. I look forward to it, I truly do. I'll even give you a little hint to help you out. Don't bother searching within the US. We won't be here. And don't bother searching for Henry, Riley, or Lily Weston. After tonight those people will no longer exist, at least not on paper. Neither of them could think of anything further to say, so I went in and woke the girls. Daddy, they yelled in unison. We packed up their things as I explained that we were taking a little trip. They seemed excited, and I said nothing when they said Mommy must be excited, too. We'd get to that, but not right now. I drove over to the private airfield where Mark's corporate jet was waiting. Jason would take my car to a local Motel 6 that I had checked into, to provide a little misdirection. We boarded the plane and got settled. The girls were amazed at the amount of room they had. There were very few seats, at least compared to a commercial jet, and for the most part they were free to walk around and play. The information for our new identities was waiting for us on the plane. We had several hours to fly, and I took the opportunity to explain to the girls that some things had happened, and we wouldn't be seeing Mommy, Grandma, or Grandpa anymore. We also talked about their new names and where we would be living. I'd tell you, but I can't risk you telling Laura. You understand. They were sad and cried themselves to sleep, but I was confident they would adapt in the long run. They were still young. Laura, I finally got home from my date at 3 a.m. It was actually only a date in the strictest sense. There had been no romance or affection. We met at a bar, had a few drinks, then went right back to his place. I had most definitely been well ducked tonight, and not just by the guy I had originally met up with. We had hooked up with a couple of his friends at the bar as well, so I went ahead and took them all on and wore them all out. Sure, I was sore, but I could have kept going if I needed to, which is more than any of the guys could say. This was something Henry would just have to understand, that I needed more than he could provide. It wasn't a swipe at him, no man could fill all of my needs, and I had gone a darn long time being less than fully satisfied until I had him where I needed him to be so I could start this whole thing. But I was going to make up for lost time, that was for sure. I clicked the garage door opener and waited as the door ascended. I wasn't really surprised that Henry's spot was empty. Dad had reacted the same way, Mama told me. I had hoped that everything would go smoothly, but Mama was right when she said the male ego would not allow them to just go along easily. I had saved Henry a kitty full just in case, but now I'd just showered out. Perhaps I had been too harsh. I mean, I know Larry wants exclusive rights to my kitty, though he had no problem handing it out to his buddies, but I've been thinking that Henry's position as my husband should entitle him to something more, so when he comes crawling back I'll go ahead and let him duck me. It would smooth things over. I took a long shower, making sure everything was nice and clean. Heck, I didn't want that stuff sitting inside me any longer than necessary. I removed my clothes, slid into bed, and was asleep in no time. I woke up having slept just okay. I had gotten used to Henry being next to me, and his absence had affected me more than I expected. But that was just proof that I really did love him, despite what he was thinking right now. But he'd be back in my bed soon enough. His love for his children would ensure that he would straighten up and fly right. I laughed a little to myself as I imagined him coming back and begging me to allow him to service me, so he could see the girls. It was just before 11 a.m. and Henry was not home yet. Still not a surprise, but the longer he stayed away the more I planned to make him apologize. I called Mom and Dad's house to check on the girls but got no answer, then tried each of their cell phones, and got no answer that way either. That was strange, I thought, they always answered. Concerned, I drove over to their house. 20 minutes later I pulled into their driveway. Their car was there as well and everything looked like it should. I had actually expected them to be out since they didn't answer the phone, or maybe working in the yard. I let myself in the front door. Mom. Dad. I could barely hear the answer, which seemed odd. Laura, honey, in here. Hurry. I rushed into the living room and was shocked to find them both tied to a chair and laying on their sides on the ground. Oh my God. Mom. Dad. What happened? I worked at untying them, his mom explained. He took the babies, Laura. It was Henry. He took them. What are you saying, Mom? Henry did this to you then took the girls? Yes, him and some friends, army guys I think. I don't know. They came in, tied us up, and Henry took the girls and left. He said he's leaving the country and we'd never see them again. My head was reeling with this information. Had I so completely underestimated him? I would never have thought he was capable of something like this. There must be another explanation. I finished untying her mom and told her to get Dad out, then punched in Henry's cell phone number. I'll fix this, I thought. He'll get his bum back here with my kids or he'll be darn sorry. Henry. The phone rang with the anticipated call from Laura. I had kept this phone and attached international service to solely for this phone call. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Hello. You son of a witch. Where the hell? I hung up the phone. It rang again moments later. Did you ducking hang up on me? I hung up again. The phone rang yet again. This time I spoke first. Laura, this is your last chance to have a civil conversation. If I hang up again it will be the last time you hear my voice. Understood. I could almost hear her scowl through the phone. Yes, I understand. Now what's going on? Why were my parents tied up and where are my children? Well, let me answer those in reverse order. First, you no longer have children. Those that used to be your children are here with me where they will remain, and you will not see them again. P.S. You rat. This is your last warning on language lore. Keep a civil tongue in your head or I'll just end this now. I only kept this phone number open as long as I did so we could talk one more time. After I hang up the next time this number will no longer work. So if you want answers you better watch how you talk. Clear. The tone of Laura's voice changed immediately. She likely thought she could still get to me, but needed to seem chastened at this point. She was wrong, of course, but she didn't know that yet. Yes. I'm sorry, I'm just very upset. Imagine how I felt finding my parents tied up and my kids gone. And imagine how I felt being told I would be forced to support my slut of a wife, while she screws anything that moves or face being denied my children. None of this would have happened if you had stayed home instead of going off and ducking 3 different guys. Yes, I had you followed. I know exactly what you did. Henry, baby, I didn't really mean it. I was just trying to get you to fight for me and show me how much you love me. We've been married for 7 years. I shouldn't need to fight for you anymore. A woman just likes to be reminded how desired she is, that's all. That's a crock of shit and you know it. Your mother explained it all to me. My role as provider and child rearer, my being rewarded with sex if I do a good job, and all the other men that will serve to satisfy your sexual needs, since that was all they could manage. Well now you are free to try and pull this on someone else. You were a fool to think I would accept what you were trying to pull. Henry, please, I'm sorry. Just bring my kids back to me. I'll do anything. Sorry, Laura. You've shown your true colors and that's the end of it. As I told your mother, you're welcome to try and find us, but we're living under different names and in another country. We have new birth certificates that don't even list you as their mother, so there's no paper trail for you to hunt through. This is the first time I've ever been glad my parents passed away in that car crash. That would have made it harder to leave. Goodbye, Laura. I could hear her screaming my name as I disconnected the call and tossed the phone into the water. I turned to my 4-year-old companions. Okay, Lucy, Janie, what should we do today? That's it for today's story. Hit like and subscribe to stay tuned for more captivating stories on Revealed Truth.